Okay, for the sake of the recording, this is the Birchville Springs Historical Society meeting for April 15th, Tax Day. I'm sure we're all excited about that. I again have to do an extension, unfortunately. Here comes John. All right. So the first thing I had put down, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I've got some slides to hopefully help us put some visualization to things. So let me get that going. Hey, John.
Hello, Andrew. I wasn't sure if I
Hi.
was on mute or not. Yeah, hey.
We just are starting, so your timing is perfect.
Oh, great.
Okay, so can someone verify if you can see my the presentation?
Hmm. Hmm. Yep.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, so here's the agenda. I did add in about the scholarship since we just got the two applications that were received at the high school. We have not received any directly to our PO box, but I'll come back to that. And then some updates on programs and barn dances, and some questions that I got answered about the maintenance of the museum with the alarm system that we brought up last time, and a couple new projects to share and talk about, as well as a phone call, if there's time, just an FYI at the moment, I had with Stephanie Hare at the Southeast Tennessee Development District. So to jump in, first thing should be a relatively easy thing. You all received an updated version of the minutes from Elizabeth. Let me just ask, since I heard no questions, I assumed we could go forward with just getting approval of those. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a motion to approve. Would anyone be willing to second?
Second. I
Oh, is it
second.
Bethany?
Teresa.
Oh, Teresa, thank you. And let me just ask if there's any discussion before I go forward from there. Was there any question about those amended minutes? Okay. So I'll ask all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, thank you very much. So those are in there officially now. With Elizabeth out tonight, I'm going to take some notes and then I'll just make sure that those get to you and we'll make any corrections needed in case I get behind here. So, scholarship. So I sent to all of you, and I know there's not been time to really look at it, but what I wanted to do is get them in your hands. There were two applicants that were received at the high school. In case I hadn't been clear about who we've been working with, it's Jama King, and Jama is the college advisor, is her role. And is the one who moved up the deadline because of needing to go out herself because she's about to have her third baby. So that's why it moved from mid-May to just a little over midpoint in April. So April 22nd, next Tuesday, is when they're handing out these awards. So everybody got pushed back a little bit on the timeline. Um, and the other thing I'll apologize for, I'm not sure why she did this, but if you look at the forms, it looks like they've written over the year number. Well, she apparently used last year's instead of what I pointed her to on our website is the newer one. But really, it was just some formatting things. We didn't change anything requirement wise from where we ended up on that last year, as far as the criteria goes. So in case you're wondering why they wrote over the numbers of the year, that's why. So we did receive just two. And I know some of you have already started some conversation by email about that, which is fine. I'm going to ask that we get a decision made quickly in order that they can prepare for the award ceremony because they always want to make sure that the young person is there if they're receiving something. And so that gives Jama at least a couple days of or business days to work on that or anything else she needs to do for the order of the ceremony. So my recommendation, as you can see on this slide, is that we just all put a vote in, and we could talk about the criteria and stuff because I know that's one of the big conversations at the moment. And rather than being able to appoint a group to really go in detail into this, and then if you come back to me on email and just say, I think this person should receive, or if you feel no one should receive, that is fine too. And that we knew that would happen sometime. But at the moment, if there's someone you feel should be the recipient, then just put that in your note back to me. Or I think Elizabeth and Stephanie and Jean, I got pretty clear notes, but if it's different than what you've said in your emails, we can talk about that. So any conversation you all want to have, because I know the question was raised about the criteria of being a Beersheba resident, and that's been in the emails going back and forth. And then also some criteria about having fully completed the application, which one of the folks did not do that rather than pointing to their resume, et cetera. So any conversation before we leave it for the email vote process?
I am curious about what is the requirement? Do they need to be a Beersheba Springs resident?
Yes,
Yes.
as you can see, that was something that was adjusted just last year, Stephanie, and in the overview document, both of you saw what you received. It's got the 5 criteria on there, and one of them is that they are a Beersheba resident. Now, also the requirement is they fully complete the application, and if they haven't done that, then that's not spelled out, but it is what they've been told to do in the instructions. So there's other things that go along with that. But the residency is one of the things that we did pull in last time. Previously, we said, a strong connection to Beersheba Springs, which is why Sam made a bit of an argument for himself around that. But yeah,
And when did it change to just Beersheba itself?
just last year.
Oh,
Actually, it was always Beersheba until it didn't really get changed just last year. It was originally Beersheba residents.
Well, but we had the flexibility of having a strong connection to Beersheba as part of it, Gene, just in recent years. So last year is when you all expressed that you, as a board, voted to say only Beersheba residents. So now we put the firm language, which had not been quite as firm on that before.
Well, isn't there only one applicant that is from Beersheba?
That is
That's
correct.
what I read from Gene. Gene, I appreciate your comments about that.
yes,
I did
yes,
not know all that. So thank you.
yes. I appreciate your thoughtfulness as well, Jean.
Yeah, those of you that are just joining the board don't have all that history. So Jean gave you a smattering of some of that in her notes. So hopefully that helps you
And
out a bit.
Susan knows all about it better than I do.
Yeah, I'd like to point out we actually didn't have anything written that I knew of about what the requirements were or anything about it. So I finally wrote something, I think about 2018, the so-called scholarship overview. And it certainly referenced we wanted the applicant to be a resident of Beersheba Springs, but I guess for a while there, Gene, we got a little wiggly on that just because based on the people who applied. But of course, I'm totally fine with it being dedicated to Beersheba. We just want to help the right kid,
Yep.
Well,
Other discussion. I found it interesting that Jennifer Lusk was the recommender for both, but she wrote an extra letter about Sam, which was really helpful to get some insight on him, in addition to his essay. I was disappointed that Jadis did not do that. And John, thank you for pointing out about the clarity. Her resume was misleading about actually being a current worker. So, you start to wonder about that if they haven't really written down the things that they're talking about. But I'm not trying to poo-poo anything, but that was just helpful to know that there's a difference there from what we saw.
And she might have just been listing the places she had worked. We don't really know where she was coming from as she wrote it.
Oh yeah, no, but she had down 2024 to present as the timeline. And
Oh, did she?
Yeah, so that's what was a little misleading.
well, go ahead. Go ahead, Susan.
Well, she may have done that resume in class or something and not updated it.
Well, she had 2025 on other things is what I was looking at. So anyhow, it is what it is. But not having had an essay, I don't really know much more about what her aims are. So that's something to consider. And we haven't weighted this criteria, right? So, that's another thing and Gene, you mentioned this last time about, we haven't really gone into details about the need, in a specific way. Um, we used to look more at scholastics, which I did look at both of theirs, which was interesting to see, a slight difference in their levels. But we haven't gone as much into, what the family need might be and that kind of stuff. So,
I think, Andrew, I think that we have to, uh, I don't, I don't think anything's perfect, but I think that we have to go by this year by what we say the criteria are. And then if it needs to be not just re-looked at, but be more specific, we need more applicants. And I'm sure that's been a problem all along. I'm guessing, but
well, the last few years we've had roughly six each year. Now,
really,
granted, we've slimmed down the field a lot by saying they must be a Beersheba Springs resident. So that's a consideration of that. I'm glad we did get some in the end this year, but I was concerned that we might not have any, to be honest.
I'm too, and maybe it's just for another day, but I wonder why the decision was made that it had to be within the confines of Beersheba Springs, not the Beersheba Springs community. And if so, what is that definition? I don't know. I mean, I don't have the history of the conversation, so I don't know.
Yeah, I've got to.
For
We can
years,
come
it was
back to
strictly,
we can come back to that, but I know how
yeah.
this conversation goes, and it goes into a 2 hour discussion.
Yeah, that's why I was afraid.
So I recommend if we want to revisit that stuff, we do that another time. But so what I will do is I'll send a note following up in
That's the
this
way it
meeting.
always was.
And
But it
if
was
if you
originally.
haven't already stated what your choice is, if you'll do that at your earliest convenience, and if we have a quorum response, then we'll go with that, and I'll go back to JAMA on Friday morning. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Excellent. Moving on. So programs. I was really thrilled that we got the impetus we did last time and then some follow-up to make it, I think, even stronger. So we do have Camille Westmont confirmed. I sent you information about Camille and that program. So thanks to Theresa for bringing that forward because I think it's a real solid start to our summer. She is excited. I have a conversation with her a couple weeks ago, I guess it is now, or a week and a half ago. And so she is fully on board. In fact, she may be coming early to do a little Beersheba Springs tour as well. I sent her some info about Beersheba Springs because she knows a certain amount, but not as much as like Tracy, etc. So she is all set to go. Michael Oliver, thank you very much, Sanford, for making that connection for us. I don't think I titled it very well here, Sanford. So um, if you or I can reach out, I don't care which one of us, to him and maybe get a little synopsis of what he's thinking, that might help put a better, title than I'm doing there to it. Is that something you might be willing to do, Sanford, just to connect with him?
Yeah, when I talked to him about it in the book that I read, I was thinking Beersheba and the region around Grundy mostly, but
Yeah,
but there's a lot of action down in Pelham and then coming up the mountain, and so yeah, around Beersheba, but not just limited to Beersheba.
sure. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, he might have a better title we can work with when we
yeah.
start to do more marketing of that. So I'll come back to you and see how we want to approach that. Um, I The other thing I'll let you all know, I have connected with the Sewanee Messenger and the Grundy County Herald and Grundy County Historical Society and a few other groups to start marketing for the May 24 program and see if that is something that builds our attendance a bit as well. It is a holiday weekend, so that may or may not play in for folks not coming to Beersheba for those reasons on that weekend. So we'll see. On the third idea, which I had brought up and then we were talking about, and I think it's exciting. I started to think, this could get really big to really contain in one program. So I'm thinking we ought to limit it a bit, and I'll go through that proposal on the right-hand side. But I did have a chat with Kelly Baggett. Her daughter Amanda, as you know, owns the Whitehaven building where the gallery is that Stacy Beam usually shows in. And they are going to be doing some work on the building because we talked about perhaps having an exhibit of some of the artist work that might be represented in the program. And they're not sure how far along the work might be and what condition things will be in. So rather than make a commitment that direction, my thought was we just do a program at this time and we can always follow up with like an exhibit of some kind and feature someone, et cetera. I think it's an opportunity for some good follow-on opportunities. So my proposal on the right-hand side here is what if we just for the moment use the July 26th date to feature a presentation about some of the artists who are no longer with us? In other words, some of the folks um, like Phil Mayhew, et cetera, and make sure we recognize and celebrate them in a way, perhaps showing either images of their art or if there are pieces that can be displayed in the space where we do the program, we do that kind of thing, and just focus on a few, or if not, as many of those folks as we can represent in a program. And then in a future one of my thoughts was, what if we had a few of our living artists represented and we had kind of a panel and maybe interviewed them about, what does Beersheba mean to you and your creative process, et cetera. And then maybe pair that with a gallery exhibit kind of event, or maybe it could be a few events in a row on a holiday weekend where we have more crowds here or something like that. So it could go a lot of directions. But my thought was, as I started to think about this, it's a little difficult to cover everybody in one program, especially if we're not going to do kind of a show. So let me just stop there, ask if there's clarification. What do you think about the idea, etc.?
As it relates to Phil, I imagine several of us have at least one piece of his work.
Oh yeah, yeah. Probably the easiest one for us to grab things that could be displayed. Yeah.
Right.
That is a good idea.
And also Terry, his wife, with her jewelry,
Yes. Hmm.
because both of those had their for sale.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I
And
had
then Brad did his leaves.
Hmm.
Brad, their son, did his leaves.
And the ornaments.
Yeah.
That's so just. Yeah.
Are there any other folks that? You're thinking people that aren't living now, though.
I had a list going. Let me
Okay.
pull that up. I was
Maybe
mainly,
it wouldn't.
let me just ask the question, what do you think about doing this, regardless of who all we include? I just want to make sure if it's on a track you all are comfortable with. Let me ask that first.
I think it's a good idea. Kind of diving into what their art is and how Beersheba influenced it, or their what motivated them and that sort of thing. I think that's a great way to dive into it, and we can always expand on that in the future.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
No, I think it's a good idea too. Yeah.
I may have it here. Oh, shoot. I had a list of people. I'll pull it up in just a second here. We had done some brainstorming last time, and I had recorded some myself as well. Let me see if I can get that up so we can talk about it. Okay. Are you all seeing this page with highlights on it?
Nope.
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I'm gonna switch presentations here. It may be a little small, but let me try it here. Okay. So up in the
Yeah.
top paragraph, the
There we are.
highlights. It's a little hard to see, but oops, shoot.
Yeah.
So of those no longer around, Monty Wanamaker I had down, Charles Cagle, someone mentioned, Phil Mayhew, John Tate, I don't know much about, and I forget who mentioned John Tate.
He was Leonard's brother.
Oh, that's it. Okay. Let's see, Mike Walker, Kim Whitfolds. So I think,
There's one of the paintings of John's in the library.
oh, is that right?
Hmm.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and add on my other list here. You all mentioned Brad Mayhew and Terry. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, but yeah. Are you thinking people that are no longer alive? So if
Yeah.
they're still
Oh, I'm
living,
sorry. They're here. Never mind.
yes. So
Right.
I wasn't thinking when I thought that.
Sorry, that's okay.
Anyway,
But we could, keep them on that list of
yeah,
people, in
for later.
future. Yeah, sorry. Yes, but this particular idea, and I'll just go back to that, was about starting with people we don't have with us now, and that we can kind of help celebrate and recognize because we may have a lot of people now that just don't, know of those folks the way some of us do. And I didn't know Phil. I knew of him, and I have a piece of his, and would see him at the fair a couple of years in a row. But I think to learn more about some of these folks' stories, et cetera, would be great. Um, okay. Well, unless there's any issue with continuing on this, if you all are okay, I'll proceed with kind of pulling together an idea of a program and bring you a proposal of how that might look and see who we might want to do what. Make sure we get an exhaustive list of everyone we would want to make sure is included, that kind of thing. Um, and then we'll make that our July program if that's sounding okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, great. Excellent. And then we can look forward about, other things for recognizing our other artists that are around. Barn dances, I think I'd mentioned to you, David Lipsey bowed out for being a coordinator this year, and Elizabeth went and spoke to, because she had talked to Charlotte Hunter, and they had said they'd be willing to help in future. So, and I don't know Charlotte and her sister Gigi, but they have agreed to be the coordinator for the day of activities. So all the setup and
Oh,
the
yeah.
coordinating, putting things out on the tables and cleaning up afterwards, and getting volunteers to help with that. So instead of weighing them down with the other stuff ahead, I'm working on getting the catering set up and some entertainment ideas. So Charlotte and Gigi will be responsible for getting volunteers, and I'll help them with that too as they may need it. So that's a good step there. Um, the caterer, I heard good things about Collins, and I think we talked about this last time. There's one other I'm looking at with a little maybe shift, so we'll get that set as soon as possible. I heard some folks say, "Hey, let's go back to square dance," or maybe somebody could do square dance and be a DJ as well, kind of thing. So I've got a couple folks I'm talking with to see if that's an option for them to help us with that kind of evening. So I'll keep you posted on that. The hayride, I know Gene last year said, I just can't do this anymore. And so I think somebody picked it up on the second night, but I don't know who it is. And so I wanted to ask you all, are you aware of anyone we could work with or contact to ask about taking on the hayride responsibility?
Hmm.
It might have been Ed Fult's son, Little Ed.
Did you say Ed Foltz's son? Is that right?
Yeah, look, they call him Little Ed. He's not that
Oh,
little, but
oh, that's
Yeah.
little Ed.
he's the
Okay.
son
Ed
of the
Jr.
older Ed
Yeah.
Fultz. He may be the one that did it and helped out. I don't know that, but he might have been.
Okay. And John, what did you say? I'm sorry.
I was just saying it's Ed Jr. Yeah,
Ed
Yeah.
little
Jr.
Ed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But
Little
as
Ed.
Gene points out, he's not a small guy.
Well, I'd heard about this being a little Ed and a big Ed, but it didn't really go along with the people. So anyhow, okay. It's like Gene being called Tiny. Did I hear that right?
Right.
Yes.
And everybody up here has a nickname.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Does anybody happen to have contact info for either Ed or little Ed?
I've got Ed's number. Ed changes his number every 6 months because he like loses his phone and gets a new number. But
Okay.
I'll be glad to,
I don't remember his number.
I'll just tell you really quick.
Okay. And if anybody has a relationship that would be better to ask than me, kind of as a stranger going up to Ed Fultz, that would be great. But if not, I'm happy to follow up on it.
Well, I mean, I can ask him, but just so you have it, his number is 931-314-5063.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Because I think we had great participation on that, at least in July last year. So I hate to see it stop if we can make sure that we can still do it.
5063.
Okay. Any questions I don't have anything about the September 27th date at this time, but we'll come back to that closer to more in the summer time frame. Okay. So, museum. So I'm going to find my notes here. Um, we had talked about what Cheryl quoted, and I sent you an email after because for some reason I had in my head there were questions, but they didn't get in the minutes. So if there are some, let's bring them up. But I had presented that they had mentioned us doing either both pest control and termite protection combined, or just doing perimeter pest protection, which is basically just exterior spraying. Um, I'd love to see us do both personally, just because there was no real evidence of termites before, but I don't know. I guess better safe than sorry kind of thing from my perspective with the way that building just sits on the ground. So let
My
me,
nephew, my
yeah,
nephew is an architect,
uh-huh,
and I talked to him about my two houses here,
yeah,
and he said, "Gene, as old as the wood is in your houses, you don't have to worry." In other
really,
words, it's gotten more hard through the years.
Hmm.
And he said, I didn't even need to worry about high winds or, of course, one of them was built in the 1800s and the other one was in 1930s, but it was made from all the sawmill wood.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, ours isn't quite that old, and we had some issues. So we've got the Centricon system in the ground just to as a protective measure, or
Right.
preventive measure as much as anything. Okay. Other thoughts about doing or not doing?
No, he did not. Charlie, I want to talk to you. No. I don't see the
Okay.
need for the interior and exterior and termite. I just don't. I'm that building has been there a long time, and if it doesn't have any termites now, I don't think it's going to have them. I
Okay.
think
Yeah, that's sort of what my nephew said about my places.
I think it's just
So what if we
waste.
went with just the pest protection? Because I saw evidence of little critters today when I was in there. So
Spiders,
what's that?
Critters, yeah.
spiders.
No, well, there's always spiders. Yeah, we have tons of spiders, but there was rat droppings on the floor, or mice or somebody droppings. Um, Sharon, I don't know if you've encountered that, but I saw some today when I was in the back
No, I
room.
haven't. I haven't.
I've got some great
Where
stuff.
was it at?
I've got some great stuff that I've gotten at the co-op. It's not just the little aqua pellets; they're great big green balls, and we have used them very successfully at Laurel Point. In fact, they're not even disappearing anymore. All winter, they haven't been, touched. Basically, I'll be glad to, share that with everybody if that's
That would
something.
be a lot less expensive
Yeah,
and
$10 a
it
bag.
works.
It really does
Well, let
work.
me ask this: who's gonna take that on? I am not doing pest treatment. I am not. So I'm serious. I am totally serious because if somebody's going to take it on, I'm happy, but don't leave this with me. No. Yeah, not happening.
Our guys, our pest guys around here take those bags of, you get them at the hardware store or at any place, Home Depot, the bags of powdered stuff, and they just run it around the exterior of the building. And that gets camel crickets and, things that try to come in. And,
Right.
I think it could be done easily.
When you say our guys, who's
Who
our
is
guys?
that?
Oh, the pest control people around here,
Oh,
Chattanooga, Signal Mountain,
So,
Chattanooga.
so you have somebody to recommend, Susan? Is that the deal? Rather than going with somebody like Cheryl, is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that I think we can go to the hardware store and get a bag and sprinkle around the
Put it out ourselves.
Who is we?
doing it. I don't mind doing it. You just sprinkle it around the perimeter and then it waters in.
What is it? What kind of is it? It's some kind of poison. What does it do?
It's
Do
that granule, the granules. It's just all of them. It's not traps. It is a granular poison.
Yeah, it's poison.
And yeah, so if we want to, most of them, the termite things are little baits, I know. But I think for bugs, that's sort of what they do.
And
And
is
you
it
can also
for-
throw them up under the building.
Yeah, you can.
And this covers mice, rats kind of thing too?
Yeah.
That's the balls. I put those in, I put them in a little plastic dish and just, watch. And if they're gone, then, you have critters that are coming and going. And otherwise, if people have cats, then they won't like that because it might, if they're eating mice, So I don't know if y'all want to go that route, but we've done it successfully at Laurel Point. We have no mice for the first time in years. Of course, we
What
have
the rest of you, what do you think?
I'd say let's try it.
I don't know. I don't know what the green ball. Could you send me what the green balls are called? What they are? Okay.
Sure, I've got it.
I'd be interested to know what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll put, let's do this, Susan. I'll put that you'll send us information about what you're proposing and that you would be able to do, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, that's great.
Kind of a lot, and
I'm gonna wash my hands.
I've been.
Okay. So on the next thing, the alarm system, some of you had questions about the door sensors, etc. And I spoke with Matthew Meeks. Speaking of door sensors, we do need to get the door work fixed first, but these can be positioned in areas to ensure that they operate correctly. So I know that was one of the questions. And we just need to make sure we have a good door closure and door frame that sits in. He recommends that we, of course, wait until we do that work. So I know there was like a question of, is that going to go off all the time? Well, yeah, until the door frame can sit tightly to it, and they can place them in different positions based on that setup as well. On the motion sensors, he says if bugs or spiders are walking across the motion sensor, yeah, they can trigger an alarm, obviously, but flying bugs will not. He said, now, if we don't want a motion sensor, we could, of course, not use one, and just go with door and or window and or smoke sensors. So he recommends only the door, window, and smoke sensors be installed as far as, what we might go for, in terms of motion. And there was a question about monitoring. If we do the $35 a month, which is the monitoring, it goes to, when something's triggered, it contacts Matthew's company. He has 24/7 monitoring on it. He says if a smoke sensor is triggered, then it'll first call the designated fire dispatch station and then call the first name on whatever list of people we give him for our organization. If they don't get a response, then they'll call the next person on our list, etc., until they get a response from somebody on our call list. So that's for smoke. For a burglar trigger, like a door or window sensor, the monitor will call the first name on our list. It doesn't go automatically to police or other first responders. It goes to the first name on our list, and then we can ask if we want to have police dispatched for that to be done. So those were the things I understood we wanted a little more clarity on. Any comments or thoughts about those items?
Be done without a phone?
Excuse me?
Can it be done without a telephone?
Yes.
Yeah, they've got cellular data options.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, they call me at the archives on my cell.
But you don't have to have a phone at the museum to do
I
the.
do, but nobody ever calls it.
But we don't have that requirement for this particular setup.
Good.
Not hearing anything else, so we have the option of going ahead and doing the work and enabling the monitoring system. And so, would anyone like to make a motion?
That we um,
Go ahead.
that we go with as proposed.
Yeah, I make a motion that we go ahead and get the system in place.
Mhm.
And just for
Second.
clarification, is that the system plus the monitoring?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I second.
Repairs to the door.
Yeah, that's coming. That we would do that second, of course. Okay. So I will just let Matthew know we're going to go that direction, but we're not prepared to do it yet because of not having things in place in the structure to support it. Yeah. Oh, now I should call. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Okay. All opposed?
Don't
Okay.
abstain.
One abstain, did I hear?
Yes.
Me
Susan?
too.
Oh, okay. Anything you'd like to discuss?
We've never had anybody break in.
Right.
How much is this going to cost per month?
If you look on the screen, it's 35 a month after we
35 a
install.
month. Okay.
Okay, so ladies, tell me about that. So are you saying you don't think we need it at all? Is that what you're saying? You're
I
questioning
don't
why
think so, based on a history. And it's been there how many years?
So Gene, basically you're against doing it then, not abstaining. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
And
right now, the alarm system is not working. You can leave it on and you go in there and the smoke detector is going off. Beep, 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 beep.
yeah, we haven't
So you
been running
turn
it
it
for
off.
months.
Right
Yeah.
now, it is not on. It's not been on.
Yeah, we turned it off a number of months ago. Yeah.
But yet
Okay.
no bothering it.
So Susan, are you feeling the same way that it's just not needed at all?
I think that at some point in the future, I think we're probably going to want to do more to the museum than we have right now. Like build another room on the back or something. I don't know. And I hate to see us do too much at this point to with it. I think it's going to be a problem getting the door fixed.
It is.
Yeah. So I think we're a little premature because I think we need to see if we can successfully, make it a little tighter so that it's going to succeed. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. No, that's
Yeah.
helpful.
actually I want to chime in. Susan, I think that's a wise position. And it's a bit like Gene saying we haven't had a problem, but I also hear you saying why spend money until we have a good point where it's obvious that we ought to.
Until we have a plan to maybe make the museum, a little bigger, maybe add a room to I don't know what just a plan other than just patching up, and not even being sure we can patch it, and make it work so that the doors stay, together. I don't know. I think that front door has a lot, is a challenge. I know the second front door is also a challenge, and the back door, I can't remember if there is a sensor on the back door or not from before.
No.
Okay, but yet nobody bothers it. So I feel as if there's a neighbor right there. I know I've gotten a call, in the past from somebody walking past, hearing it going off. I feel like it's not it's sort of in a good visible location, which is good for security. It's not, way at the end of a driveway where, people aren't going to see. And if we don't have a lot of things that would cause a fire in there, I just don't, I just think I'm just not thinking,
Okay. Yeah. Little cart before the horse. Yeah.
that's
My,
what I'm, that's
Okay.
what I'm,
my suggestion is that we table this motion. I think that's what you can do with things like this. We can table this motion and bring it back up at a later time.
like after we've repaired the door and know
Yeah.
that that good closure.
Okay.
Second,
Who was the second?
motion. That was Stephanie.
Okay.
But I do think it's good to have security. I'm all in favor of security, but I just question whether it's going to work.
I think it's important to have a smoke detector there, because it's,
It is.
any kind of electrical can
It is.
spark a fire.
It is. Yes.
It is okay. But if y'all say that there's been no theft in the past, there may be a perception that there's nothing of any value in there. So at this point, until we have more of a perception that there is things of value in there to those who thieve, maybe it's just the fire protection we need.
And there's never been vandalism, right?
Never.
No.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
Sharon, you know of any?
Pardon?
Do you know of any vandalism?
No, I don't.
Just the bugs. I think spiders are Sharon's main.
They are. Yeah. Okay. So we're tabling the motion, and to my understanding, that means we can bring it back at any point that it makes that needs to be raised again. Yeah.
We need to vote. We need to vote on that.
Do we?
Second. Yeah.
Okay. I think Stephanie seconded it, and so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
John, which one are you? Favor or opposed?
In favor.
Okay. It came a little late on my audio, so I just want to make sure.
Right.
Okay.
I'm opposed. You need to fix it.
No, he's meaning that we table it.
I know. I got you.
Sharon? Okay. All righty.
So
Okay. The other thing I had down was about electrical system. I mentioned I had contacted Toby Woodley. I've called him 3 times now and no response. So I went to another
No,
guy
not heard from him.
who I'm going to
He
speak
didn't
to
know to call
tomorrow.
you, though, did he?
Sorry, ladies. Is there something? Gene, Sharon? Sorry.
Who is it?
Okay, I'm meeting a man tomorrow, Carlos Ortiz, to talk about what he would assess as a possibility for us, and then I may go ahead and get a second quote as well. So I'm moving away to other people. So since first one didn't work out, so I'll update you on what information comes from that and see what we may or may not want to do either now or future. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, that's where that
That's good.
stands. Moving forward. Oh, and I've done research on people to do the exterior work, but I've not pursued anybody yet, and I haven't heard anybody from you all, so I'll keep working on that and let you know if we get further along. New projects. So last year we talked briefly about the idea of having a historical society logo. And there was just some brief discussion at a couple of meetings. And so Elizabeth and I were talking about it again, thought, let's just, play with the idea. And so we've been in conversation with someone who I know is a designer, graphic designer. And, we were talking about, wouldn't it be great if we could brand our posters and our website and various things with a logo that helps identify the historical society, not just the town of Beersheba Springs. And so something that could be used for print, for online, etc. And so we've been vetting some ideas with a designer, and there's some really cool stuff that she's coming up with. So what I'd like to do is bring you a couple ideas next month, and see if we might go ahead and make a choice of a logo. As you can see from that fee, she is very reasonable because we've used at least, I don't know, just in conversation, 8 to 12 hours of her time already. So it's very reasonable, and I think we would get more than our money's worth out of this. So this is picking up on something that was raised last year and just got some energy behind it recently. So that idea in mind, one of the things I'd like us to think about, and we don't need to get into any decision making tonight, is looking at what we want our website to be for us. John, I know, is very familiar with the limitations and the lack of flexibility and the lack of options that our current website has. I've been looking at other historical society websites, and there's a number of things it would be really lovely if we could accommodate, like I've seen with some of those. More than anything, just to have some space to work with. So if you look at our website, you'll see these little text boxes. And at the moment, in the template that's there, as far as my ability, and John, you have more than I do, but the ability to play with the thing, it just really limits our ability to do much of anything with it.
Andrew?
Yes, sir.
Oh, can I share something?
Please, of course.
So I'm on the board of a public park here in Atlanta, and we built a new website a couple of years ago. And I used a guy that I've used a few times now. I think he's in Utah, and he is very good with WordPress, which is what so many websites are built on. In fact, more websites on planet Earth use WordPress than any other system.
Yeah.
And he's extremely cheap. And it would be under $1,000 for sure.
That's
And
great.
we would have the job of just sending all the content to him, or of course he could just pull a lot of it off the site we have, then add to it and get add whatever. And then of course, once it's a WordPress site, it's pretty easy to add photos and change content and everything. And
Yeah.
I would suggest going in that direction. In fact, he's working on a project right now to do one for the Beersheba Springs market, and he'll have that done pretty soon.
Okay, cool. Yeah, the woman we've been talking with does web design as well, and WordPress is her choice as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
we could, look at our options, see what we want to do, and based on there's a lot to think about. AV, they've been involved in this kind of thing. I used to do web design in the past, and there's a lot to think about, not only the look and feel you want, but also what do you want it to accommodate. And I think I've got some notes down here. Yeah, some other historical society sites do things like they have ability to join online, to not have to go fill out a form and mail it, to donate right there online, which is a nice thing. Go into more kind of visual details of the history and kind of experiential things online. There's an interesting one for Jefferson County that I was looking at in particular. That's kind of cool if you get a chance to look them up. But we could also put recordings of our events and things like that, different ways to connect our audience. Because when you think about it, the bulk of the people on our distribution email list, they're not here. And they rarely, if ever, come here to Beersheba. They just have other connections from the past, or friends that some of you all have asked to add to the list. So we need that avenue would help us connect them in a way that we really don't have the opportunity to do now. Of course, we want them to come to Beersheba, but if they don't, is there a way that they could really understand what's happening and what they may want to come and get involved with and reconnect with? So I think it could be exciting to have a website that helps us do more of that. And of course, the overall look and feel, if we get excited about a logo, then we got an idea of what that look and feel might be that we want to connect with as well. So, uh, reactions, comments, ideas on that topic?
Good.
All
Good.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
So we can come back to that later on, but I'll come back next month with the logo stuff. This last thing is just kind of an FYI, and Susan has more information on Stephanie Hare from the past than I do, but she had mentioned that of a connection we might want to make again. It took me a while, Susan, but I finally got a hold of her. So we had a call last week. Stephanie is with the Southeast Tennessee Development District. And her title is, or her work is as a historic preservation planner. Well, that can mean a lot of things. They have a lot of different people who do different jobs over there. But I was mainly just introducing and getting an idea of what if we connected with them in some way, what might be the possibilities. And one of the things I thought was pretty cool is they have a connection with the MTSU Center for Historic Preservation, and they often have students help with projects in different communities. And there was one that in particular that came up in our discussion, which I'll mention in a moment. But we talked about some various things, and I said, so I told her a little bit about Beersheba, and she knew a certain amount, of course, already. But I said, what might be some of the things based on what we do that would tie into things you all help support? And one of the things was how getting people more engaged in understanding and learning the local history. And so they have a lot of ideas and advice on how you can do that based on your physical property as well as other things. And I told her about our wanting to do some things with the museum and how that property eventually could be something more involved in the museum itself. And she had some great ideas of some grants that might actually go into helping support that. Now we've got that wonderful fund to work with, but depending on what we have to do building wise, there's a lot of money that may go that direction. So that was good to hear as well. There's even some Arts Commission grants like the Arts Building Communities that could be applicable because I told her a little bit about this idea for our July program and how we've had these wonderful artists come out of Beersheba. And she said, it may be that particular grant could be applicable for Beersheba because they're trying to see more of that kind of thing happen in Grundy County, that it hasn't been a county that has had much addressing the arts side of things. And then the other thing she mentioned was cemetery preservation, that she herself, that's one of her passions. And she says, I can do training of volunteers to help you all learn how to clean and maintain cemeteries. And I mentioned especially where the Armfield was one in terms of preservation, et cetera. So it was a great conversation. There's a couple things she's going to bring back to me to talk about what we might go and discuss further in the future. But of course, as some of you may be well aware of, there's a lot of cutting going on at the federal level, and so these kinds of organizations are already being threatened. And then in the state end, the governor has not funded some things in recent years that tie into this organization. So not everything's a positive when we come to talk about grants and other things that might come from groups like this because they're just not as able to be assured they're going to have the funds. But regardless, I think there's some partnership, consultation, and advice that we could benefit from. So that's in general. I just wanted to let you know I'd had that conversation, and I'll share more as I hear back from Stephanie. But any comments or questions on that?
Where is she located, Andrew?
Stephanie's, I think she's near Chattanooga.
Yes.
She is? Okay.
I was
Very
thinking,
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking earlier when we were talking about the arts, highlighting the artists here that we could expand when we do expand the museum to have an arts section, where we highlight artists there.
That would be very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I could see us easily having a gallery area of Beersheba artists. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
TSLA also sends me information when grants are available for museums and libraries and so forth.
TSLA, spell that one out for me, Jean.
Tennessee State Library and Archives in Nashville.
Oh, okay. Okay. I belong to the Tennessee
On their
Association of
email
Musicians.
list for all types of grant information and training.
Okay. Okay. Great.
to remind everybody when, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the name of the man whose house was torn down and rebuilt
Yes.
across from the post office. What's our friend's name? Gene.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That flooded, always the front yard flooded.
Thompson,
Yeah,
wasn't
it
it?
still floods.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Anyway,
it Thompson?
Yeah.
anyway, they funded that. And when we learned what was happening,
Yeah.
I talked with Stephanie, and she was very apologetic, said that the grant was done. I know that he needed a new house, but to lose one of our log ones, even though it was kitty,
Yeah.
kitty, whatever, the problems that it had, she said, we would like to help you get a grant for something.
Mhm.
What do you need?
I
So,
remember that. Yeah.
right.
We need a new museum.
So,
I
or
can answer that. And
just add something to the back, maybe,
yes,
go out
Oh, Susan.
anyway.
It's an
Um,
idea, but
Yeah.
Or
I remember
I
that.
keep coming back to signage. I keep coming back to community signage, historical signage. In my mind, we have the wonderful tour that Elizabeth Papel did for us, the tour brochure, but to have some signage so that people could follow it, easily somehow.
Mhm.
I just still think that's a real need.
I agree.
yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the things that Stephanie and I talked about, Susan, because offered, that was one of the things she said could be a student project because they have done some things for other counties and other communities on that, either by a brochure that has QR codes or where you actually see those at the locations. That's harder to do because we have to get people to agree to have little signs in their yards and stuff, but it's able to be done via a brochure that you walk around with, just like our map. And if you scan the QR code, you can watch a video or listen to audio or read something about it. I'm going to share my screen here. This is one they did in Pikeville. I don't know if you all have seen this site, but it's pretty cool. They're just advertising it here, but this video goes into how it works, where you can tour parts of Pikeville and learn about it as you go through and scan codes on different places. There's the brochure there, and then it's on your phone, etc.
That's
So
really, yeah.
she had some good experience and background in that, and so I think there's some options out of that partnership we could get related to that. I agree. Yeah. So, okay. Connections, partnerships, all good stuff. So if y'all think of other groups, we could, start to make some of those things work. Going back to the museum, I'm I'm determined, Sharon, that that back room is not going to stay the way it is much longer. So I'm going to be going in, folks, to start some rifling through, and Sharon, I'll connect with you about that. There are things that I had mentioned to some of you, and I mentioned to you, Gene, a while back that we thought might be better off in county archives or somewhere where they are climate controlled. And I think we're getting to where that's becoming a more desperate situation. And that room it is so filthy back there. Anything that's there is not going to be precious for much longer, in my opinion. So, if anyone wants to dig around, let's have a little party. Because I think at least we could get some organization going and make sure we know what's under there, and we know what is what and where, if nothing else. So. More on that, but Sharon, I'll connect with you in particular, so I make sure I'm respectful of things you've got in certain ways in there. Yeah.
all
Will
right.
you,
Okay.
will you let me know when you're going to rifle around? I still haven't
Yeah.
been in the museum. I really,
Oh
I
yeah,
really-
yeah, 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 yeah,
Oh,
definitely, definitely.
Me too. Mhm.
So within the coming week, I hope. So I'll send a note out. Anybody wants to come over and have a chat while we're in there, because I think it'd be good for us. It'd be great for us to have a meeting in the museum, because
Yeah, I think
some
it
of
would
you
too.
have great experience with it, some of you have less, and I think the more we're in the space and say, ooh, this comes through well, this doesn't. But we know there's plenty to do. It's not about that, but trying to get the building at least so it's stable around it, I think is a big thing. So I'll keep on the pieces I've got, and any help in contacts, et cetera, let me know.
Oh,
Great.
when you go through the documents,
Yes.
I think that they are in a specific order that TSLA put them in, and that
Oh, yeah.
there's an index for them, so we should
Other
not
ends.
get them out of that
Yeah.
sequence.
Yeah, and I'm not even those things I'm not touching, Gene. I'm thinking of the stuff that's just various boxes,
Right.
that's my concern, is the things we haven't cataloged or anything else, and are they going to be how are they going to do over time? Yeah. But those things, no, I'm not going to mess with what's been organized for sure. Yeah.
Good.
Uh, no worries. Any other comments or questions before we adjourn? Okay. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate getting another meeting pushed in here. So we'll meet in May, but then we're on bi-monthly from there on, unless there's an emergency. But thanks for squeezing this other one in. I think it helps prepare us for the months ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you,
Okay.
Andrew.
Have a
Yes,
great night.
thanks, Andrew and everybody.
Good night.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night.
Ciao.